Who is the NFL MVP? That is what everybody wants to know. What is going on, y'all? FaizSportsTalk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NFL here to discuss just that with you guys. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button down below and make sure to turn on my post notifications, guys. I do talk a lot of football and basketball as well on this channel, so you don't want to miss out on that. Hit me up on my social media as well. Follow me on my Twitter, my Instagram. Links down below for all of that. So if you haven't done that, what are you doing? Go ahead and do it. With that being said, here to talk about the MVP race, which is heating up, folks, and two guys have really separated themselves from the rest of the conversation. Yeah, I know there's candidates out there, and I'll talk about why I don't feel like they are up to the level of the two guys that the race is really shaping up to be between, and that is none other than Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees. Yes, I said it. Those are the two guys who are the leading candidates for MVP. Yeah, there's Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, maybe even a Khalil Mack. But if you take a look at whatever reason, it could be the record or the numbers, it's not measuring up to Brees and Mahomes, who are the two guys that have really separated themselves from the crowd. So here to talk about who I believe will win MVP between these two guys, who I believe obviously has the better shot as the season moves forward, and ultimately why I think that certain person at the end, I'll tell you, is going to win the MVP. So with that being said, let's get started. So as I always do, I'm going to start with the numbers, and I'm going to start with the numbers for Patrick freaking Mahomes, who is absolutely lapping the NFL in touchdown passes. He's got 37 on the year. The next closest is Drew Brees, who is obviously the other candidate, with 29 touchdowns. Andrew Luck also has 29 touchdowns, so shout out to Andrew Luck. The Colts have been playing real good football, so I want to point that out. With that being said, Mahomes is lapping the NFL in touchdown passes. Like I said, he's got, 8 more than the next closest person. 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 3,628 yards. Good for second in the NFL. 67% completion percentage. 117.9 quarterback rating, and second in QBR. Let's take a look at Drew Brees on the other end, who I just mentioned, with 29 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions, which is ridiculous, okay? That is crazy, okay? 3,135 yards, 76% completion percentage, 127.3 quarterback rating, and number 1 in the NFL in QBR. Okay, so those were the numbers, right? But this is how the breakdown is going to happen, because this is how the MVP is won, and it's very similar in the NBA as well. In the following order is the importance of the criteria. Okay, so number 1, the numbers. Stats are the biggest way of determining who's going to win the MVP. If you're not putting up big numbers, you're not winning, period. We know both these guys have the numbers. That's why they're the leading candidates. But again, I'm going to give you guys who has the advantage in each category. So stats are number 1. After that, record. You're not winning MVP unless your team has a winning record. Plain and simple, either the number 1, number 2 seed, but it's got to be up there. Number 3 is going to be level of difficulty. Who have you beaten? Who have you played? Has it been difficult for you? That's going to factor into things. But again, it's less on the totem pole than the stats and obviously the record. And then finally, the talent surrounding you. So who do you have? What is your replaceability level? Does the talent around you trump everybody else's talent? So all of that is going to be taken into account. But again, I said those 4 things, it's in that order, okay? So with that being said, I just gave you guys the numbers, and we saw that Patrick Mahomes, to me, still has the slight edge in numbers. He's lapping the NFL in touchdowns. He's got more passing yards than Drew Brees, who's number 5 right now. Yes, Drew Brees has less interceptions, but again, it's not like Mahomes is leading the league in interceptions. He's got just 10. So with that being said, I'm going to give the edge to Patrick Mahomes, but it's slight because, like I said, Drew Brees number 1 in QBR, but Mahomes number 2 in QBR. Brees has a better quarterback rating. Mahomes a little less, but passing yards, passing touchdowns there. And if you project out the rest of the season, so we've got a bit more like 5 games left in the rest of the season. If you extrapolate Patrick Mahomes' numbers, he is on pace to throw for 50+ touchdowns. Okay, Drew Brees is on pace for, I believe, about 44 touchdowns, something around that. So that is ridiculous. If Patrick Mahomes throws 50-plus touchdowns, which he's on pace to do, that's what he's been doing all season, and he throws 5,000-plus yards, which also he is on pace to do, it would be very difficult for me to not say that Patrick Mahomes has the edge in numbers. So I'm going to give Patrick Mahomes the edge there. Now let's move on to record and see who have you actually beaten and what the path is for the rest of the season. So we know right now the New Orleans Saints are tied for the best record in the NFL at 10-1 with the Los Angeles Rams. We know that the only loss, can you guys believe it, that the Saints have had was back in week 1 to Fitzmagic. I mean, my God, this is why I love the NFL, right? Any given Sunday, anything can happen. Ryan Fitzmagic was the only guy that has beaten the Saints so far. So Saints are 10-1. Chiefs are 9-2, and we know one of those 2 losses came at the hands of the Los Angeles Rams, in which was the game of the century, in my eyes. One of the best games ever, arguably the best game ever. So no shame there. They lost by 3 points, okay? So record-wise, very close. But let's take a look at the signature wins for both Brees and Mahomes and see who have they exactly beaten and if those were impressive wins or not. Because we know every team gets, wins against teams that are obviously not very good. But have these guys really had signature wins? And we take a look at Patrick Mahomes first. The win against the Los Angeles Chargers in LA, pretty big victory there. Chargers are a very good team. Then in Pittsburgh, beating the Steelers, throwing for 6 touchdowns. That was a huge victory, I believe. And then at Denver, everybody remembers, I believe that was a Monday night game. Patrick Mahomes threw that pass left-handed. That was a crazy win. I know Denver's not a great team, but them in Denver, they're pretty tough, and they're a division rival. So I thought that was a pretty big win there. Then we took a look at Drew Brees. He beat the Ravens in Baltimore. But again, Justin Tucker missed that extra point, which he never does. So I think that was maybe more Baltimore than it was the New Orleans Saints. Then we take a look at them beating Minnesota in Minnesota. But Drew Brees had a very subpar game that game. He had 120 yards passing, lowest of his entire season, and had just 1 touchdown and 1 interception. So he had his worst game of the entire season. So I don't know if I can attribute that to Drew Brees. So then we take a look at the win against the Rams. Okay, there you have it. That was the signature win, beating the Rams at home. That was obviously the team that was undefeated at that point. You gave them their first L, and Drew Brees balled out. And then beating the defending Super Bowl champs, even though that was at home. I mean, my God, just absolutely destroying them. I even forgot the score, like 45-7, and Drew Brees goes off. So to me, really 2 signature wins, if you want to say 3. But again, he had his worst game in Minnesota, so can you really give that game to Drew Brees? So you take a look at that, and then we're going to try to project out the future games here. Patrick Mahomes, the rest of his schedule is shaping up like this. At Oakland, win. Versus Baltimore at home, I think they can beat them. Then at home against the Chargers, let's say that's a loss. Division rival, Chargers are a tough team. At Seattle, probably going to win that game. They could lose, but I'm going to say that's a win. And then home against Oakland to close out the season, that's a win. So that makes them 13-3 on the year. Let's take a look at Drew Brees' remaining schedule. At Dallas, that's a win. I think they can beat the Cowboys. Versus Tampa Bay at home, they should win. At Carolina, I think they lose. Okay, division rival. I know the Panthers aren't as good as the Saints, but division opponents know the other division opponents really well. These games always end up being tough, and they're playing the Panthers twice in the last 5 games, so I think they lose one of them. The one I'm projecting is in Carolina. Then they play against Pittsburgh at home. Tough game, but let's say they win it. Okay, they could arguably lose, but let's say they win it. I'll give them that. And then they beat Carolina at home to close out the season. That puts them at 14-2. So 14-2 versus 13-3. Not a big difference. And if you take a look at the fact that you have the Rams, who could arguably be 15-1 and be a higher seed than the Saints, and then you have the Chiefs at 13-3. Right now, they're number 1 in the AFC. So let's say they end up being the number 1 seed in the AFC. So you've got Patrick Mahomes, the number 1 seed, and then if Drew Brees is the number 2 seed, I think that's a slight favor to Patrick Mahomes. So if you take a look at record-wise, yeah, Drew Brees might end up with a better record, but Patrick Mahomes will be number 1 in his conference, so that might tilt it in their favor. So I'm going to lean slightly towards Mahomes in that one as well. So we talked about the numbers, the stats, the record, who have you beaten, the level of difficulty, and now the last thing is basically the talent around you. And a lot of people I've been seeing have been saying, oh, who is Drew Brees throwing to? Are you kidding me? Drew Brees is great. Cinch future Hall of Famer, no doubt one of the top 5 quarterbacks, top 10, however you want to put it, arguably of all time. Not arguably, he is, sorry. But Drew Brees has weapons. Alvin Kamara is a top 5 running back in the NFL, one of the best pass-catching running backs. If you combine him with Mark Ingram, that's arguably the best running back duo in the NFL. Michael Thomas, a top 5 receiver, you can argue that as well. So he has weapons, okay? Traquan Smith, up-and-coming receiver as well. Want to give a shout-out to that. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you've got the reigning defensive rookie of the year in Marshawn Lattimore, so he's good there as well. So Drew Brees has talent on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Now, if I take a look at Patrick Mahomes, he's got Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, so the Chiefs offensively, I believe, have more talent than the Saints. So I will give this edge to Drew Brees in that Patrick Mahomes has more talent around him because Tyreek Hill is unreal. Fastest receiver in the NFL, bar none. Travis Kelce, best tight end in the NFL right now. Gronk is not Gronk. I'm sorry. We took a look at Kareem Hunt, arguably a top 10 NFL running back. You can make the case he could be top 5. Very good. We know that. Sammy Watkins, a very good number 2 receiver. So the Chiefs have more weapons than the Saints, but it's close, okay? You got Andy Reid and then Sean Payton, so you're kind of having slim pickings there, so I don't really know if I want to pick between that. But overall, it's not a runaway. It's very close. But yes, Patrick Mahomes has better weapons than Drew Brees does. So now we come full circle, and let's talk about and conclude who is the MVP. So I gave you guys the numbers. I gave you guys the record. I gave you guys the level of difficulty, and I gave you guys the talent surrounding them. And to me, it is a slight favorite for Patrick Mahomes. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to win the MVP because, again, he's going to have the better numbers. His team is going to be the #1 seed in his conference at the rate that they're going. His level of difficulty, he's got more signature wins, to me, I believe, than Drew Brees does. And we take a look at the fact that the weapons Drew Brees probably is working with a little less, but it's close. So the one advantage Drew Brees has, it's not that big. Now, hear me out, folks. I am not against Drew Brees winning MVP. If he goes on a tear these last 5 games and throws like 5 touchdowns a game and, 400 yards and he catches up with Patrick Mahomes with the numbers, or the Saints don't lose another game the rest of the season, Drew Brees should win MVP then. I'm just saying at this point right now, Patrick Mahomes objectively is the MVP. Drew Brees is number 2, very close. But Drew Brees can absolutely win the MVP if he does what he needs to do and goes on a tear. So I'm just saying right now, objectively, and I have to be objective, who is the MVP? And that to me is Patrick Mahomes. So let me know if you guys agree or not. Debate me, folks. I want to talk to you guys about it. Reply in the comments. I will reply back. Let's talk about it. Who is the MVP? My pick right now is Patrick Mahomes, but again, subject to change depending on what happens at the end of the year. I'll probably make a video about this again at the end of the season. So let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. As always, thanks for watching.